Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Dr. K's Academy. My name is Engineer Rahman Ali Khan. Let's start the lecture number 8 of Building Construction Engineering. So, the outline of this lecture are to discuss surface trending and its types. So, in types of surface trending, we have to define and discuss plastering and its types, pointing and its types, washing, distembering, painting, and at last we will discuss tiling. Surface rendering. So the process of applying suitable covering to the masonry surface is called surface rendering, and it is also called surface finishing or surface treatment. So we can define the surface rendering as the art of treating the surface with a suitable covering material to make them weather resistant and decorative is called surface finishing, and the material which we use for the covering the surface finishing are called surface finish. So now let's discuss what is the purpose of providing surface rendering. So the finished surface of wall constructed in brick or stone masonry, ceiling, timber or steel work in a building are irregular, water absorbent, and are liable to be affected by the weathering agencies such as rain, wind, gases, etc. Therefore, we have to provide a finished surface with a suitable covering material in the form of plaster, uh, paints, washes, etc. to make them smooth, water repellent, weather resistant, and to provide them a pleasing appearance. So, in simple, we say that to protect the surface from the effect of weathering agencies, to provide smooth and decorative surface, and to provide and to control acoustic noise. Types of surface rendering. So there are many different types of surface rendering or masonry surfaces, such as plastering, pointing, washing or whitewash, distempering, painting, tiling, terrazzo work. So we will discuss each in detail in the next slide. So now let's discuss plastering. So the art of covering the surface of the masonry work with a suitable plaster is called plastering. So now you will be thinking that what is plaster? So it is a fine paste or mortar made by mixing cement and sand or pet lime and sand or surhi with sufficient quantity of water. It's called plaster. So you can see in the figure. So the requirement for a ideal plaster is it should adhere firmly to the surface and it should contact in volume while drying and setting. It should be durable enough to resist the effect of weathering agencies, and it should offer good insulation against sound, and it should offer good resistance against fire, and it should provide a smooth, non-absorbent and washable surface, and it provide the surface with required decorative effect. So the purpose of providing plastering is to provide even, smooth, regular, clean, and durable finish, and to protect the surface from the effect of weather agencies, and to conceal the defective workmanship, and to cover inferior quality of material used in the masonry, and to provide a smooth base for decorative surface finishes. Types of plaster. So there are different types of plaster, such as cement plaster, lime plaster, mud plaster, stucco plaster, mold plaster, terrazzo plaster. So the cement plaster, lime plaster, and mud plaster are common. So we will discuss these three in the next slides. Now let's discuss the procedure of how cement plaster are using or applied to a wall or any other structure. So the first step is surface preparation. So before applying plaster, the surface should be prepared and the joint of the masonry are properly raised to a depth of 10 to 15 mm to provide key to the plaster. The surface is then thoroughly wetted with water, washed well and kept wet for 6 hours. After that, the second step is screed work for plaster. So for uniform thickness of plaster, a wooden screed 7.5 cm wide of required thickness of the plaster are generally pitched vertically 2.4 to 3 meter apart. So careful uh, plumbing should be done and fixing up these uh, screeds. So third step is mortar mixing. So in this, the cement is first thoroughly mixed with dry sand in the required proportion. Then water is added to the mix, and again mixed thoroughly to obtain a homogeneous mass. Each batch of mortar should consist of such quantity to be used in a minimum of 1 hour. So the cement plaster is prepared in the batches so as to lay and finish the plaster surface with each batch within half uh, an hour after adding water. So the fourth step is plaster application. So the plaster is applied in 1 or 2 coats. It depends upon the thickness of plaster. So in case of single coat, the mortar is dashed against the surface between the screed uh, and one coat thickness should not be more than 12 mm. And the surface of plaster is removed with the help of mason strip. So and then the plaster is pressed well with the wooden float so that the plaster may fill in the joints of the machinery. The surface is then finally polished with trowel and iron float. And in case of 2 coats, the first coat is prepared as described above, with the only difference that is only not polished. Before applying second coat, the first coat is allowed to sit, but it should not become dry and roughened with a scratching tool to provide a key to the second coat. So the second coat, which we applied in a thin layer and not exceed 3 mm in thickness, and within 48 hours after applying the first coat. So in the last step, we have to do curing. So plaster surface shall be wet, cured by covering the surface or sprinkling of water for a period of 1 to 2 weeks. Cement plastering forms an ideal coating for external finishing. It is also used for internal rendering of common as well as important building, and it is especially suited for damp conditions uh, like bathrooms, kitchens, etc. So lime plaster. So in case of lime plaster, the fine aggregate may be sands or surhi. Surhi is brick powder. So the lime may be a lime sand plaster, lime surhi plaster. So it is rarely used in Pakistan, and the lime surhi mortar is used for historical buildings. So in case of a lime sand mortar, the proportion usually 1 part of lime and 2 part of sand, and the thickness of the lime plaster varies from 20 to 25 mm. So it can be applied in 1 or 2 or 3 coats. So and the final coat is made with richer mix than the first and the second coat. So lime plaster is applied in the following steps. So the first 2 steps is same as we discussed in the cement plaster. So in such ways preparation, we prepare the surface for the plaster. So before application of plaster, joints of machinery should be clear up to a depth of 10 mm, and the surface is then thoroughly wetted to make the surface material saturated. And screed work for we do this for to obtain a uniform thickness. So we fix wooden screed from 2.4 to 3 meter effort to obtain a uniform thickness of plaster. First coat application. So it is applied by dashing the lime plaster with the help of a trowel against the wall surface between the screeds. Then plaster is pressed against the surface to fill the joints, and the function of this coat is to fill all the irregularities of the surface. And average thickness of the first coat is 10 to 12 millimeter, and then we left the first course for dry for 3 to 4 days before applying the second coat. So the second coat application, so before application of the second coat, the first coat is washed and scratch over with the edge of trowel. Then the second coat is pressed against the wall surface with the trowel and rub with straight edges. And the thickness of the second coat is 6 to 10 millimeter. Then we allowed the second coat to set for 2 days. Third coat application. So this coat usually consists of baked lime, which is called lime putty, and it is applied on the second coat and made perfectly plain, um, and then rub first with a wooden float and then with a steel float to polish the surface. It is about 3 to 6 millimeter in thickness. It is allowed to dry for 2 to 3 days, and then the surface cured for 7 to 10 days. So the suitability of lime plastering is for the internal rendering of buildings, but it is not commonly adopted these days. Mud plaster. So mud plaster is prepared by mixing with mud and with water. Sand usually 10%, cement usually 10%, locally available straws and animal ducks govers may be added to strengthen and stabilize the mortar against weathering action. So mud plaster is usually applied on adobe, sun-dried masonry, wall surface in rural areas. In rural areas, and mud plaster is usually applied with hand without using trowel and plates. So how we can apply the mud plaster? So these are the steps which we take while applying mud plaster. So the wall surface is first prepared as described in case of cement plastering. Then the plaster is evenly dashed against the wall surface with a wooden float. After 24 hours, the surface is stamped. The function of tamping is to compact the layer and to drive it deep into the joints. It helps to avoid the development of cracks due to hollows. After tamping, water is sprinkled and the surface is polished with steel uh, float. A thin wash of cow dungs is then given and tamping is done against at the places where small cracks have formed. Finally, the surface is given a wash of fine white earth and cow dungs. Sometimes surface is given a wash of fine earth, cow dungs and cement is in proportion of 3:2:1. So the mud plaster is done on walls of temporary sheds and countryside buildings.